and welcome to the Pick and Roll podcast. And today I've got a good one for you guys. So basically, today is going to be another week of full game breakdowns. It's really exciting. So, usually I've been doing about 5 games a week. And, I've started doing the math in my head. And between this week and next week, we got like 13-ish games that we need to watch. So I put 7 games on for this week. So I added 2 games to this week's schedule. There's a lot of guys that reclassified and went back to college. Jackson Robinson, Nee Clifford, the kid from Florida State. Can't think of off the top of my head. Alex Caravan went back. Mark Sears went back. Nafale Dante tried to go back, but Corrigan was like, no way, you're not going back, which is kind of funny. That was pretty crazy. I do remember on Twitter, people were losing their minds because Jackson Robinson didn't actually declare at the night, so people were just staying up all night. Because he waited until the next day to declare that he was going back to, I think he's going to Kentucky, I think. Yeah, a lot of people reclassified. And it's kind of surprising. Some of them had, the highest ranked guy I had to reclassify was from Florida State. But a lot of them were high second round draft picks, like Nee Clifford. I'm surprised by Nee Clifford going back. Also, another guy from Arkansas, Trevon Brazil, 6'10", really athletic. He was another guy that was really high in my big board, like 33, 32. That reclassified. It was surprising. But a lot of guys reclassified. But we still have around 13 to 14 guys to watch. 2 of them are from Arizona, from Keyshawn Johnson, Pele Larson, which will be next week. But, technically it's 13 games. So this week I have 7 games that we're going to go ahead and watch. I'll go ahead and give you an intro. So the first game is going to be Paticum Dialect versus... He played against Zachary Rasher in that game. That was broken down with Zachary Rasher so much that there's no point in breaking him down with what I saw from Zachary Rasher in that game. Just wanted to watch Paticum Dialect against, a great prospect like Zachary Rasher. Compare the two. Really, really interesting stuff. You guys are going to definitely want to hear that. He's somebody that's flying at my big board. The second game that I watched was Daron Holmes, 6'10" center from Dayton. He did declare that he's staying in the NBA draft as well, so he'll definitely be staying. Then we got Kentucky versus UNC. Harrison Ingram versus Antonio Reeves. Harrison Ingram's a 6'8" power forward, and Kentucky's a 6'6" shooting guard. And then the next game is Minnesota versus Michigan State, which was basically Cam Christie's game. 6'6" shooting guard. Really interesting. And the next game is Tyon Grant Foster from Grand Canyon University. We've watched him a lot. I'm definitely really, really high on him. I love his game. The next game we watched is David Jones, 6'6", from Memphis. And then the last game of this week was Akron scouting Enrique Freeman, 6'9", power forward. Alrighty, let's go ahead and kick it off with the really amazingly impressive Paticum Dialect. So Paticum Dialect is a 6'8" small forward from Germany, playing for Ulm, playing at the highest league Germany plays in, and he did play in the Euro Cup this year. He averaged 6.1 points per game, 2.3 rebounds, 0.7 assists, 51% field goal percentage, 34% three-point percentage, 0.5 blocks, 0.1 steals. So, just a little recap of the reason why he's been going so crazy on my board lately is because the first game I watched of him, I didn't see much. I just saw him stand in the corner. Defensively, he looked okay. I could kind of see what people saw in him, but I just didn't see, much there. The second game, watching him, he showed flashes of some nice handle, some flashes of some crossovers and attacking the rim. I was like, wow. You put that on top of his standstill 3-point shooting and defense, we got something interesting here. I had him graded as 82 through 20 pick level player after that. And last week he showed us some really interesting sidestep 3-point shot off the hesitation of that crossover that I mentioned in game 2, which is really interesting with a 6'8" length and above average athletic gifts and the very smoothness that he plays with. He also showed a really nice fadeaway jump shot in the mid-range, the shot clock winding down, which was really interesting as well, and a Euro step and the full court fast break situation. Really interesting skill set. So last week I had him graded as a 10 through 12 pick level talent. This is the game that we just watched just now. Watching him play against Zachary Richer, kind of wanted to see if I was losing my mind on him, or was he kind of in that league of a Zachary Richer with a high top 10 draft pick. And he didn't look outclassed at all. He showed some full mid-range shots off the wing that looked really fluid, which was really nice, adding to the bag and the shot creation that we've seen. But the story of the night was, dear goodness, was he looking so good cutting to the basket. I mean, the cuts that he did going towards the rim and timing it and the passing of his team. I mean, he put on a clinic. It's some of the best cuts that I've ever seen. Him and Zachary Richer are both really great at cutting to the basket and getting easy looks. He just looked incredible at that game. So, when you put that cutting together with an above-average athlete that's a very smooth, they can make you think that he's just an average athlete because he looks so smooth, right? With the step-back three-point shots, the crossovers, the 35% three-point percentage, the pull-up mid-range shots. That's a guy that's flashing three-level scoring, right? And it's very similar to Zachary Richer, where Zachary Richer, you watch 6 games and you see maybe eight times the shot creation. It's very rare that Zachary Richer shows you the bag that everybody loves him for, right? And, Paticum Dialet's kind of in the same situation there. And, but it looks so smooth and elite when he does it. There's so much skill there. It's really interesting because, obviously 6'8", so he's going to be taller than everybody else. So he's going to, be able to get these shots off at the next level. And he looks so smooth doing it. He shows flashes of 3-level scoring and being elite at every single one of those levels, and also the cutting. And I did come up with a comp for him. I'm very confident in this comp. I don't think anybody's going to find a better one for him. That's Luol Deng. Now, if you guys don't know, as somebody that grew up in Cleveland, and I grew up a Cavs fan, Luol Deng was a stud of a small forward for the Chicago Bulls when they had Derrick Rose there. He was the second or third best player if you consider Joakim Noah the second best player in that teams, but he'd give you like 17 to 18 a game. He'd do it off of 5 cuts to the rim. He's the best cutter I've ever seen. Luol Deng's the best cutter I've ever seen play basketball. It was insane. He put on a clinic. He'd piss you off as a Cavs fan. It's like, oh, how'd he do that? He's so open. Why does he always get like 10 easy shots to the rim? He averages 10 a game just from cuts. It was just insane. Luol Deng put on clinics on teams cutting-wise. And I do think Paticum Dialet's similar to that. But Luol Deng also had, could shoot a 3, was 6'8", his smoothness made him look less athletic than he was coming out of Duke. I did watch him play Duke a little bit while making this comp, just to make sure I was firm on it. I definitely feel like the way he moved and looked at Duke reminds me of Luol Deng, of what Paticum Dielet looks like now. And on top of that, he'd have like flashes of a step back 3 and some really nice pull up mid range shots. And it wasn't like super duper elite a shot creation, but he definitely had some stuff there to give you 17 to 18 a game and do it really efficiently and, be a solid defender as well. And I definitely think Paticum Dielet's very, very much like that. Right. And, when I start throwing comps like that, that's Luol Deng's one heck of a player. So right now I have him graded as an 8 through 10 pick level talent. I don't feel like he was overshadowed by Zachary Richer at all. I do feel like he is this year's Bilo Culleby. Bilo Culleby was flying up draft boards late last year, and sadly, he was the only guy, sadly, that wasn't able to watch full games of last year because all of his international stuff was hard to find. Unless you watch it live, it's really hard to watch these games. And find these games, especially since he played mostly at the lower level of... He was on Victor Wembanyama's same team, but he didn't play on the French A League. He played in the French B League. It's hard to find game film because of that as well. So it was a really tough scout, but he flew up draft boards. And, he definitely doesn't look like a bust so far. He's looked good so far for Washington. So I definitely think Paticum Dielet's this year's Bilo Culleby, where's that wing that the more you watch him, the more you go, hello, right? And I'd be surprised if there's not somebody in an NBA front office somewhere that's watched him 4 or 5 times and been like, man, we're going to draft this kid in the lottery. And if he doesn't go in the lottery, then we'll find out long term if I'm right or not, right? Because he will be drafted by somebody. But, I'm really interested in him. I have him graded at 8 through 10 talent, and he just didn't look overshadowed by Zachary Richer at all. And it was so great to see, like, athletically, his ability to defend him, score with him. He honestly looked like he took on the challenge. Like, Paticum Dialett had a little bit of an edge this game, which is nice to see as well, because he's a competitor. Now that we can kind of put that into the breadbasket of things that we know about Paticum Dialett, because he was really competitive against Zachary Richer. You could tell by just the way he defended him and how intense he was defending him and the energy and the things of that nature. He definitely took that matchup personally, which was nice to see. So, yeah, Paticum Dialett's a very, very surprising guy that the more you watch him, the more you're impressed. So, yeah, he's earned this 8 through 10 grade, and he's also like 18 or 19, so this is not like, oh, he's 23 looking like this, right? He's 18 or 19, so he's really young. So, yeah, I have him graded at 8 through 10 talent, and I don't feel bad about it because the tape is really interesting. All right, so the next guy to break down is Day'Ron Holmes from Dayton. So Day'Ron Holmes measured in at 6'10" at the combine with 7'1" wingspan. Center from Dayton, he averages 20 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 54% field goal percentage, 38% three-point percentage, 0.9 steals, and 2.1 blocks. So he's got a really good body frame, and athletically wise, vertically he's okay, average. Up and down the floor, straight line speed, average. But he does have above average to good lateral movement, which is really the most important thing, because his lateral movement is going to be important when switching on the smaller players. That ability is really important. So that's definitely the best thing he does defensively. Shot blocking at the rim is going to be a little bit of a question mark because 6'10" centers is small. It's a small for a center position. They tend to not defend the rim as well. You have to be either really, really strong and really great body frame, or like have great vertical athleticism to really overcome that lack of height at the center position. So, Day'Ron Holmes definitely going to have that question mark, but he makes it up a little bit defending laterally. He definitely shoots the three really well. His most translatable offensive skill. 38% three-point percentage is, the three-point percentage of a really elite two guard that shoots the three extremely well. He has some intriguing flashes of some handle and some shot creation off the handle, but I do think it's really raw and will never translate to the NBA. He's pretty solid in the post, but I don't think that's going to really be translatable to the NBA as well. I don't think it's good enough to be in the NBA. He's one of the worst screeners I've ever scouted. I mean, it is terrible. It's really soft screens. He abandons the screen really quickly. He doesn't really care about trying to be in the pick and roll and dive to the rim and play his role as a roll man. He'll always flare out to the 3-point line and, demands for the ball. He's not going to be able to do that at the NBA. He's nowhere close to that good of a player. He can get away with that at Dayton, but he couldn't even get away with that at like Duke or Kentucky with Rob Dillingham or Reed Shepherd this year. They would literally just look the other way and be like, you're not getting this ball back. If you don't dive to the rim, you're going to sit on the bench. So there's some bad habits that he has offensively that's going to need to be broken. Defensively, he can be a little lazy on some possessions and take possessions off. Oh my goodness, running up and down the floor, he looks so slow. Dude looks like 44-year-old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar jogging up and down. He doesn't crash the glass, doesn't compete. Those are definitely some of the weaknesses of Day'Ron Holmes. Is he's not a huge competitor. He's not somebody that's going to fight and claw for rebounds. He's not going to fight and claw, dive on the floor for the loose balls. He's not going to set hard screens and be a team player and dive to the rim 50 times. He's can be lazy sometimes defensively, and that's going to need to be coached out of him. Whoever was Dayton's coach did not hold Day'Ron Holmes to high standards. You definitely see some laziness coming out, but he shoots the 3-point shot so extremely well, and the idea of him also still being 20, 21. I'm sure he's going to mature with time, and as we all get older, we get more mature. So this may just be a little bit of immaturity thing that'll just naturally go away with time. So that's a very, very definite possibility. But I definitely feel like he's definitely going to have to get a lot better at the little things that are really needed. But the 3-point shot is just so elite, and his defensive lateral gifts are really elite. So I do have him graded as a 30 through 35 draft pick. I could see some teams like the Milwaukee Bucks looking at him like late first round and think about drafting him because Brook Lopez is older, and teams that need a 3-point shooting center could make sense for. But, he's definitely has some things there that need to grow with time and him to get better at, because it's going to be tough for him to get on the floor if he can just only shoot threes and not do everything else well. Because he's not going to be able to get away with the diva stuff at the next level, because there's way too many great guards that are not going to allow him to be so lazy on these screens, or he's not going to get on the floor. So, it's a lot of bust there, because centers don't play hard. They're not in the game, right? Like an example of a hard playing center that probably doesn't have NBA backup center skill, but plays so hard that he's on the floor is Isaiah Hartenstein, right? Like the New York Knicks backup center, he plays hard. I mean, he rebounds, he sets hard screens, he dives hard to the rim, he defends hard, sprints up and down the floor. If there's a loose ball, he'll chase it. If there's a rebound to be had, he'll chase it, right? You know what I mean? He plays hard, right? And there is 15 to 20 of those guys in the NBA that will make Daron Holmes sit on the left end of that bench and be their second starting center, even though he has more skill than them because of the laziness. So that is a make or break thing for him. If he is going to be that lazy at that next level, he's not going to be in the NBA. I don't want this to come off like a personal thing, but it's just the tape. If I'd be surprised if he watched himself for a full game and saw somebody that plays hard. I don't know what he's watching. It's tough because he has a lot of gifts that most people don't have. He has the gifts of a really elite 6-man type of thing, right? But really elite bench guy. The first guy we bring off the bench, being really elite if he could develop his scoring skill even more. You know what I mean? So it's tough. It's tough. He's got to play harder at the next level, and if he doesn't, he's not going to be in the NBA. But he has so many gifts that he's a 30 through 35 draft pick. All right, so the next game to break down is North Carolina versus Kentucky, and on the UNC side of things, we got Harrison Ingram. So Harrison Ingram's a 6'7" small forward, power forward, either or. With a 7-foot wingspan, averaging 12 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 43% field goal percentage, 38% 3-point percentage, 1.4 steals, 0.4 blocks. He's definitely an above average passer for the small forward position. Shoots 3-point shots well. The handle is the real issue, because his handle is really below average at best. In tighter situations where there's not as much space on the floor, he really can't do much handle-wise. He has to rely on backing people down in the mid-range and things of that nature to get some shots off and, maybe spin around them to get to the rim. But, taking somebody off the dribble, he's not very confident in. And defensively, he is a strong human being, but he's not very quick and he's not very gifted laterally. So, he has issues where people can kind of attack his feet and get good shots off. And that's basically what's going to happen in the NBA. So I do have him graded as a 65 through 70 pick level talent. He's a little older, so the handle question mark's definitely an issue. And the defensively doesn't really offer a lot either. So, these guys that have their best skill as passing have issues getting on the floor if they can't at least do, the little things well, like shooting threes and, defending defense and things of that nature and attacking the rim. And I just don't think he can check off all those boxes. And the next guy to break down is Antonio Reeves, 6'6" shooting guard from Kentucky, averaging 20 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 51% field goal percentage, 47% 3-point percentage, 0.7 blocks, 0.7 steals, 0.2 blocks. He's a very good three-point shooter. I mean, 44% three percentage is really great. Moves off ball well. Has a nice pull-up mid-range shot. His handle, just like Harrison Ingram, is a real issue. It looks awkward and not natural. And that's somebody that's like 23 or 24. Not a lot of time to really develop that. He's an average defender, but between those two things and his off-ball movement, I do have grades of 56 through 60 pick level talent. So yeah, that's what I think of Antonio Reeves. All right, so the next man up we got is Cam Christie, 6'6" shooting guard. He measured at 6'6" at the combine. He's from Minnesota. With a 6'8" wingspan, averaging 11.3 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 40% field goal percentage, 39% three-point percentage, 0.6 blocks, 0.6 steals, 0.3 blocks. This guy's a good athlete. Like, he'll surprise you. He's really good and smooth, and it really translates to him being a really good defender. I mean, he can really defend. He's very, very good. He'll be very switchable at the next level. He'll definitely be able to guard point guards without any issues at all, but still be 6'6" and nice and long for the two-guard position. He really fits as a nice, good defender at the next level. He can hit standstill three-point shots, moves off ball well, shoots well in those situations. He's somebody that you can also run dribble handoffs for, and he'll hunt three-point shots. If it's not there, he won't shoot it, but he can definitely be trusted to have the ball in his hands, his handle, and maybe take a few dribbles and try to find a good shot. There's a point in time where they ran a pick and roll for him that he looked really nice shooting a three-point shot off of that as well. It's really, really interesting. He does have to get better with driving to the rim with time. He didn't really show much flashes of that, but his three-point shooting skill with the ability to move off ball, hit standstill shots, run a pick and roll of the three-point shot, run dribble handoffs. He's got a lot of skill there, three-point shooting that's very diverse, and you can run multiple different actions. It's not like you have to just be a team that, oh my goodness, if we don't run off-ball sets, this guy's not going to give us value, right? Because he can't do other things, right? Cam Christie can do multiple things, right? I do feel like I have a really good comp for him. A slightly more athletic Danny Green. Not as good as driving to the rim as Danny Green was, especially coming out of college. He spent like 4 years in college, so he was definitely more developed in that area, especially, but he was better at that weakness, but Cam Christie slightly more athletic. But if you watch Danny Green in San Antonio Spurs, you'll see him move off ball. You'll see him catch standstill shots, but you also see him run dribble handoffs and hunt three-point shots, and if it's there, he'll hit it, right? And you'll see him run pick and rolls and come off the pick and roll and maybe take a few dribbles, and if it's the three-point shots there, he'll take it. If it's not there, he'll make a right pass and get out of that situation, right? And Danny Green was really good on the Spurs, and he was a really good defender as well. So I really view him as a, very much similar to Danny Green. The ability to drive to the rim is going to have to improve with time. That's really the only thing that's stopping him from being like an 18 through 20, or maybe even 15 through 18 draft pick level talent, because he's very elite at shooting the three and defending. We can all understand immediately and picture 3-and-D ideal two guard that could even start, right? Kind of like KCP, guys that are really elite at those type of things can start, and he could start in the future if he gets better at driving to the rim. So, I do view him as a similar kind of player to Danny Green. I do have him grades of 22 through 26 pick level talent. He would be much higher if the field goal percentage was around 44 or 45%. He would be around 15 to 18. So, he's kind of has a 15 through 18 pick level talent, just with deficiency. But he has so many other things that you really don't see for somebody that's 18 or 19. And, even to put this in perspective, his brother Max Christie played for Michigan State, got drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers, 35th of the roll, and I watched them both, and he's more athletic than him. Cam Christie shot 38% field goal percentage and 31% three percentage coming out of Michigan State. I mean, Max Christie did, and Cam Christie shoots like 39% three percentage. So he's a better prospect than Max Christie. So I definitely feel like he'll probably slip into the first round, since Max Christie was the 35th pick in the draft. He was a really high second-round draft pick. So I definitely feel like Cam Christie is definitely a lock for the first round, in my opinion. And I do have him graded as a 22 through 26 draft pick. And you better believe we'll be scouting him next week as well, because I definitely want to see more stuff. And hopefully see more of him driving to the rim, which would rise him up on his draft pick level talent grade. All right, so the next guy to break down from this week is Tyon Grant Foster, 6'7" shooting guard with 6'11" wingspan, which is great length. He could even play small forward as well, but yeah. Averaging 20 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 44% field goal percentage, 33% three-point percentage. He's a very good athlete that attacks the rim really well. Has a nice finishes near the rim. He looks really, really elite in those situations. He changes speeds so well. He really is elite running pick and rolls and running those actions. Passing wise, he's average for the shooting guard position, but attacking the rim, being elite out of those pick and roll situations is definitely something he definitely does. He's a very good on-ball defender. He's got very good shot creation on the three-point line, step-back threes, things of that nature. Off of his, he'll kind of hesitate to go to the rim and then shot create to the three-point line off of that, which is really, really interesting. Has some really nice pull-up mid-range shots that look really, really good. I do have him graded as an 8 through pick level talent because he is 24 and, he also had 2 heart surgeries, which makes him 24. The reason because he missed so many years because he had 2 heart surgeries during his college career. So it's definitely health, medical question marks. But I'll be completely honest with you. He reminds me so much still of SGA, but definitely feel very confident in that comp of skill-wise and length-wise. And, if he was 18 looking like this, he would be easily the number 1 pick in this draft class. Easily. Wouldn't even be a discussion. We'd all be like, okay, he's going to be, in the conversation with Anthony Edwards, Jalen Green for the best shooting guards we've seen come out of college in the last 6 to 8 years, right? He definitely would be the number 1 pick talent. He probably has the best tape I've watched this year, the best skill I've watched this year, offensively speaking, and offensive potential and, the ability to score points and be elite. But, 24 in the medical issues are huge question marks for him. But, he's got a lot of talent. He is the X factor of this draft class, and if he's able to reach his ceiling, whoever drafts him much lower than what his talent in this tape is will, if he reaches his ceiling, they will look back in this draft class and be like, how did everybody miss on Tyon Grant Foster on a terrible draft class? He's the X factor. Him and Terrence Shannon for very obviously different reasons. Terrence Shannon, I do also have graded as like a 2 through pick level talent tape-wise, but Terrence Shannon has, the court case and things of that nature, so it's a little different. So, but, those 2 guys are the X factors in this draft class. And, man, Tyon Grant Foster's tape is incredible. It's incredible. All right, so the next man up to break down is Memphis's David Jones. David Jones, 6'5" with a 6'7" wingspan. That's what he measured in the NBA Combine. Shooting guard for Memphis, averaging 21 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 45% field goal percentage, 38% three-point percentage, 2.2 steals, and 0.4 blocks. He's an average athlete. That looks like a best-case scenario below average or average defender. He has a little bit of a tightness in his hips and lateral quickness-wise. He's just not that elite. On top of that, he has really nice scoring skill for like a small forward. And he scores from the spots in the mid-range and then like the post, and it'll flash every once in a while some 3-point shot creation, but it's not very, consistent. Most of his stuff is near the rim on the wing, but he's 6'5", so he's not going to be on the wing on the NBA floor. He'll be on the, the top of the key. And I do think that's a real issue for his shot creation abilities because his skill is for the wing position, but he's 23. Will he be able to translate that skill from the wing and the post and, implement it off the dribble is like a high volume shot creator in the NBA? Or I just can't really see it translating like that. I don't think he has enough time to develop a skill to be able to do that due to him being 6'5", and even though he plays small forward for Memphis, he's not going to guard small forwards in the NBA. He's not going to be able to play small forward. He's not going to be able to score from those spots. And, even if he was, he'd still be 6'5" in the NBA and be able to have his shots blocked by small forwards. And, his ability to shot create would be very much neutralized. So I do think David Jones' scoring skill doesn't really translate because he's a below average defender. I do have him graded as a 65 through 70 pick level talent. Alrighty, let's go ahead and kick it to the last game, the last player to break down, which is Enrique Freeman from Akron. He has 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan, power forward, averaging 18.6 points per game, 12.9 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 58% field goal percentage, 37% percentage, 0.7 steals, 1.7 blocks. He's an average athlete. That is an average defender, but he has a 6'9" length, so it's really nice for the power forward position with a 7'2" wingspan. Really ideal length there for that position, so that's going to allow him to be an average defender in the NBA. He really only posts at Akron, even though he shoots threes as well. But, his handle is extremely poor. I mean, the flashes where he has the handle and the ball in his hands and he takes more than one dribble, the defender digs, which is basically digging is somebody that's help side and, help side, and he's going to dig at the ball and try to steal it. He's got to pick up the ball immediately and pass out of it. So it just looks extremely raw. And he's 23 or 24. He's been in college for 5 years. So it's not enough time to develop the handle, and I don't think that even though he can shoot threes and be a standstill guy in theory and be an average defender, his handle is so poor that people can just hard close out on him, and he's not going to be able to do anything about it because his handle is so poor, and I don't think he's going to have enough time to develop that because, again, he's 23, 24. He's so late in his career as a prospect. So I have him graded as a 75 through 78 pick level talent, and he's the lowest guy on my big board right now. I have 66 guys, and he's 66 at this moment in time. So yeah, guys, that was the end of this week's podcast. That was 7 full game breakdowns I just did for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and intro what we got going on next week. So we got Paticum Diedlet. Next week's going to be the last time we're going to watch and break him down, see, if he can still solidify himself as an 8 through 10 draft pick. And then the next game we got Arizona versus Oregon, but we're only going to really watch Keyshawn Johnson and Pele Larson. We won't really break down the Fale Dante unless, see anything really interesting for him. But Keyshawn Johnson and Pele Larson. Keyshawn Johnson 6'8", Pele Larson 6'7", and we're gonna watch another game of Cam Christie. Man, I'm excited to scout that. It's really gonna be fun. And then the next game up, got Ulrich Komrike, 6'10", from I think he's from Nigeria or Jamaica, or he's from somewhere in Africa. He's 18, really young. We're gonna watch. I think it's the NBA Nike Draft Summit. He played a game with the high school class that's coming into college right now as the world side of it. So we're going to watch that game, and try to break them down as much as we can. The next game after that is going to be 6'6" Isaiah Crawford from Louisiana Tech. And then we got the last game. It is going to be Jalen Wells, 6'8" shooting guard from Washington State. I'm really interested to watch him because I have watched him throughout the year, and I did think he might be an NBA guy. So I'm really interested in breaking him down as well. That should be at the end of our full game breakdowns. The weeks after that will be the big boards and the mock drafts, which I'm excited for, and I'm sure you're excited for. We're a month away until the NBA draft. It's gonna be so quick. Close our eyes, and it's gonna be here. I'm really excited for it. I hope you guys are as well. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate anybody that listens to the podcast, just tells their friends about the podcast. I appreciate the podcast. I really appreciate everybody that listens. Hopefully you guys all have a great week.